of Journey Through the Universe, and we're live. I'm so excited to be live with all of you and with you, Alexis, as well.
Yes, we got a little bummed out last week. We weren't able to go live, but great conversation
It was
nonetheless.
a
It's
great
just nice to
conversation.
have you all with us.
Yeah, and I hope that you are all able to check out our previous chat on dream incubation, which was our second chat on dream incubation, which was obviously a follow up to the first one. And in the last chat, we shared our experiences and our success stories, or maybe not so much of a success with our dream incubation. So I'm really excited for tonight's chat. And in the spirit of the thinning of the veil, I'm going to light some sage just to kind of set the tone here, maybe for you guys, maybe for myself. Sage is just, the smell of sage is so nice. And I like
Yeah.
to burn little pieces because it gets really intense.
Yes. And I'm like over here with like the pine oil that you
Yes.
sent me. And it
Yep.
smells so amazing. And it like brings me immediately to like this time of the year from October to December where things are just going through such an intense transition. And I love it. So since we are now out of the scope of the lunar and solar eclipse, how has your dreamscape been? And like, have you noticed any more experiences from dream incubation?
Not anything from dream incubation. And I'll say that I haven't been honestly grounded enough to really fully have that experience, I would say. But my dream space has been really intense and profound at the same time. And Alexis, I was telling you about how I am now I'm going to start paying attention to like the solar seasons or this is Libra season, then we have Scorpio season. So I'm going to start paying attention to that because I recall last year around this time, I was facilitating a dream circle. And it was around this time where I started having really intense dreams. And then I would say, I believe it was like when it got closer to Halloween, I was having nightmares. And there were things going on in my life that I was in fear and anxiety of. So it makes sense. But just thinking about back then and thinking about now, I've seen the same kind of dream-ish things come up, but the evolution of the dreams, I've seen the evolution and the progress that I've had like through my dreams. So while it's the same general idea, I've seen the changes within the dreams. And so I am not sure if that's me personally, because during Libra season, being that you and I, Alexa, share Libra 12th house, it would make sense that our dreams would be kind of like really the hidden aspects of our dreams would be really illuminated. And, you can have those really intense dreams at this time, or I don't know if that's like a
Yeah.
collective experience.
It's like
And
a deep
yeah,
well of subconscious
right.
information
Yeah.
and also like just diving deeper into yourself. Like it's
Yeah.
it's pulling back
Very
those
like
layers.
introspective type. Yeah. And then you already have like also at this time of year, the thinning of the veil.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, are we all experiencing this? Is this a Scorpio rising type situation? Like what's happening here? But what about you? How have your dreams been?
So I'm gonna say I've been kind of in a similar boat as you this last weekend. Since Thursday or since Wednesday, I had my birthday on Thursday, and then I was kind of like go 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 since then. So I haven't had my practice be more as grounded as it was. But I do have to say that I started in a different direction with my dream incubation, and I had talked to you privately about my interest that came out of nowhere of wanting to pursue ancestral work and kind of
Mm-hmm.
just like deepening that understanding of myself and my ancestors and just diving into that. So a couple nights ago, I want to say it was Sunday. I went to sleep, and as I was closing my eyes, getting ready to go into that sleep space, I said over and over, like, please send me messages from my ancestors or something along the lines of that. And what I experienced felt like being on 30 different, like 30 plus different planes of existences all at the same time, experiencing everything at once and not being able to communicate verbally what I experienced. I mean, at one point, I
Mm.
even traveled through a door, like through a portal, which was more of like a death realm, an afterlife realm. And it was so
Yeah.
intense. And like I said, I really can't verbalize it. But even though I haven't been as consistent with dream incubation as I would like to be, I think that's going to be the continuous question because it was almost like, or even maybe like go deeper into a more specific question because it was so much. I feel like there's just so much information that my brain can't handle it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like you're peeling back the layers. So like as you start to see things, you can refine your question with
Yes.
the incubation process, and you can get more and more refined as like it's almost like this personal journey of like discovery or just on a journey to find some sort of treasure, but it's your own. And it's just making me think of like Indiana Jones type movies, or just those where you're like the hidden treasure. We're gonna like, go to these foreign lands and we're gonna dig and like go into these like secret places and see like what we can uncover. And there's just like one clue after the next, and then hopefully you'll come into contact with like what you realize that you were looking for that maybe you didn't know in the beginning, but it became even deeper and more profound than you could ever imagine. At least that's like the journey I hope that you get to experience and share with us, of course, if
I
you
hope
desire.
so too. I hope so too because I woke up from that experience and I was like, I don't think I've ever had anything quite like what I experienced last night, like when I woke up, because I really normally I'm very good at verbalizing my experience, but this was something that was so profound and so ethereal and so different that I I can't explain it. Like I can I don't know. It's like trying to wrap my head around even trying to talk about it is almost seems like it's too much for my brain to
Yeah.
figure out. I don't know. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
you just can't put it into words. And that feels like very 12th house to me. It feels like
Yes.
very like elusive, like ethereal, you know, energy that you can't really grasp. Like it's only like one, it's like you have to be there. And then also it's like it's just a feeling. It's just an energy, right? It's like it's not necessarily tangible in certain ways. So that's incredible that you had that experience.
Absolutely. And it's weird because I haven't had many dreams aside from that I could remember since
Yeah.
since we talked last.
Yeah, I had some, I won't really get into the details more so just because of time, but I did share with you, and I'll share with, listeners at some point in time when it's relevant, the dreams that I've had where they have been recurring dreams, anxious dreams at times. And it was really interesting again to see the evolution from, even, like I said, from like a year ago to maybe 6 months ago until now, where it wasn't really anxious. It was more just like I could feel that energy there a little bit, but it was like I was in a state of awareness where I could realize that, oh, this actually is indicating progress in this situation. Like it's still there a little bit, but there's some progress. So I really I'm just grateful for that, for the experience.
Yeah, your dream journey has come so far since then
Yeah.
too. Like the more you share with me, the more like I don't know, it's some are profound and some are hilarious and some are both. And it's just like
Right.
your growth altogether is really in alignment with your dream work. And it's so weird to think about the fact that we haven't even known each other for a year.
Yeah, but I feel like I've known you for like decades
I
because
Yeah,
this
I
dream
feel the
work is so
same
deep.
way.
Yeah, now that you mentioned, I'm like, that's right. That's incredible. That's crazy.
I know, like I don't think we even started chatting until February. And we've been doing these since like February or March, but like it feels like years and years and years and years. Um, but it's crazy to think about that it hasn't been more than a year since at this point we've known each other.
So speaking of March, in March 20th of this year, I believe is the exact day, Alexis and I had a conversation about astral projection with another friend named Lewis, who had some experiences and had a practice to share on astral projection. And it was such a really good topic. It was such a really good conversation. And this inspiration of this episode, a part of it came from that, wanting to discuss more. And then we'll share another part of the inspiration probably towards the end of our episode. But it was a really good conversation. We focused a lot more on astral projection and kind of the difference between astral projection and astral travel. In this episode, we're going to focus more so on astral travel, and we're going to talk about astral travel in dreams and in meditation, and whether we've experienced some sort of difference between the two. Those of you watching, we would love to hear your experience, your comments on the differences, or just, what you've experienced with astral travel in general. If you are curious about astral projection, or you just want to even hear our previous conversation on this, you can find it here on our YouTube channel. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, go to our YouTube channel. It's Journey Through the Interverse podcast. You can find that on YouTube. And the replay will be there for you. And I want to say shout out to Jace. Jace is here. Jace, you found us
Hey,
on this.
Jace. Sorry to miss you last week.
Right? Yeah, I had technical difficulties. Well, you know what happened, Jace, but for those of you listening, I had some issues with my computer and it's not 100% fixed, but I remedied it. And I think that's my eclipse/Jupiter retrograde experience, but that's for another conversation. Jay says that this is a great topic, as I believe astral travel can be achieved while in dreams. I believe we do get guides who will take us through that way as well when we are young, as a way to get used to it. And then Jace goes on to just share that their dreams recently were seriously crazy. Last night, it was all over the place. I was traveling to several different areas in different situations, which don't make sense. And then last night's dream was all over the place, went from a small foreign town to a river to a trailer near an ocean or a giant lake, then to a farm. Yeah, it's been, oh, what's going on? Jace is not a Scorpio rising, so that doesn't apply. And thank you for giving us that, just another shared experience of how the dream space has been really just busy and
Busy,
very
odd,
vivid. Yeah, just like,
profound,
what are we doing? Where are we going?
ungraspable. It has been such a like, from the lunar eclipse to the solar eclipse, it was like very poignant. Like, I got so many messages. And then from the solar eclipse to now, it's just like weird. It's like almost like a lot of the void, but then also like jam packed with so much information.
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot.
When does Jupiter go into retrograde? Did it already go in?
Yes, I think today, actually, as of today, it station retrograde. So in Gemini, and Alexis, for you and I, that's in the eighth house. So that also brings in some element of the psyche and one of those mysterious places, mysterious houses. So
I'm so
yeah,
thankful that our
definitely.
charts are aligned in that way.
It's so easy. It's so easy.
It is. It's like, all
The
right, well,
shared
we both have
experience
them
is
in all
great.
these places. Like, the planets may not
Yeah.
align, but the houses do. So at least we have that.
Yeah. No, it's great. All right, so I think we should start with defining what astral travel is, just so that we're all on the same page for the discussion tonight. And so, astral travel, from my perspective, my understanding is that it's a projection of our consciousness, or rather, the experience of our consciousness traveling outside of the physical body, so separate from the body. That is the most basic, simple way to define that. Like, there were tons of definitions, and kind of just like, oh, okay, this is basically what we're doing. Is there anything that you want to add to that, or?
No, well, astral travel. happens within like the dreamscape, and it has strong correlations with lucid dreaming, kind of like astral projection has strong correlations with sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's an out of body experience. So it's in that category of out of body, an out of body experience. And I've had astral travel experiences. I would say I'm more comfortable in my understanding of astral travel through meditation. I've
Yes.
heard you share many of your experiences, as well as Jace sharing his experiences as well, and pointing out to like my certain dreams that I've had that could have possibly be astral travel. But I'm more, I would say I can understand it more from a meditation perspective, which I can share on. But do you want to share on how astral travel might be experienced in the dream space?
So my biggest difference between astral projection and astral travel is that astral projection has an intention to it, where astral travel doesn't really, especially within the dreams, like within the meditation, yes, but within astral travel, it's more like different planes of existence, or different like I don't know, an outside of the realm of realness, where astral projection is within your space. So like a lot of people like literally see themselves with astral projection getting out of the body, and they're able to travel in the area and kind of see what other people are doing and have those experiences from above, where astral travel is more like to me, from what I experience with that, is just different planes of existences. And I've had astral travel experiences a lot within my dreamscape, and a few times with guided meditation. The most impactful and profound experience with guided meditation I had was a experience I had where I meditated within the bath. And if you've ever done that, that being in water when you meditate is just, I don't even know. You have to try it for yourself. Like, dim your lights in your bathroom, light your candles or incense, like get a little tipsy or high, if that, helps you kind of relax into that space.
Yeah,
But
get your crystals too, your quartz.
yes, crystals, put them around you, allow that to illuminate your experience, and dive deep. I mean, when I had this experience, I was listening to a guided meditation that brought you deep within the earth. And I was there. I was there. I was in the water, and then I was deep within myself and within the earth at the same time. I could feel all of the things, all the layers within my psyche, within my physical sense, within the center, all the way up to the surface of the earth, from the roots of the trees to just like the lava of the inside of the earth. And it was such an a lasting it left such a lasting impression, and I value that experience significantly because it brought me outside of myself in a way that I never knew consciously I could do. Like, I wasn't I was like, I'm gonna relax to this meditation. I didn't intentionally just fucking go into a different realm of experience that's almost really difficult to talk about verbally. Like, but yeah, a lot of my astral travel happens within the dream. And I definitely see the correlations with my lucid dreaming to my astral travel. But I'd love to hear your experience with that.
Yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned, the meditation is definitely something I'm more familiar with when it comes to astral travel. And I share your experience as far as doing it in the bath, which I don't know why I didn't really like remember that until you mentioned it, because that was a place where there were on a few occasions where I would listen to like singing bowls. I would have the crystals, the candles, and I would like zone out and visualize myself in like this cave, like sitting like in the water where like the crystals were like big structures like in the cave, and it was awesome. So you recall that, you helped me to remember that experience. And with astral travel through meditation, that's also very intentional, as you were saying, as my experience with that has been to, with me, it's always listening to certain frequency, certain music. At times, like when I had the actual practice of doing it on a daily basis, I would lay on my living room floor. I would lay like in a star shape where my arms are spread out, my legs are spread out, and I would put like a crystal, a quartz crystal, and amethyst, one at each point. So my head, my two arms, and my legs. And then I would just zone out. And usually before I did that, I would write some sort of intention. Like if I had a question for my spirit guides, or, just whatever my goal was, if I wanted to visit a past life or if I left it open, I would set that intention. And then after the astral travel experience, I would come out and journal. And what I experienced in meditation was definitely, I felt more of that idea of projection of consciousness, where there were times my body would hover and I felt really warm. I didn't feel like I have had astral projection experiences, which was like a little bit different, where it's like, I don't even know how to explain it, but it feels like you're more in control, so to speak.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's what I meant by intentional. Like you're controlling
right.
your
Yeah.
being as you come out of that physical space.
Right. And you feel like the most separate from your body. And I would say astral travel and meditation is probably, versus like astral travel and dreams. Astral travel and meditation to me feels like the most like connected to your body. Like I knew I was in my body, but it was like my consciousness was somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah. And so in dreams, from my understanding, and there's one experience that really stands out to me. And Jace, I think you kind of mentioned this because I didn't think about it initially, but it was the dream I had where I was lucid and I was doing a bunch of things. And at some point, I was lucid, but it's like I kind of lost control of the dream from a like, oh, I'm making commands and I'm doing things. And so I ended up in some sort of place where I was like almost in a hallway, and there was a TV at the end of the screen, and or at the end of the hallway, and I was trying to, or I told the screen or the dream to like show me, I forgot what it was, what the request was. And there were like music videos because there were like three screens, and then things were changing and I wasn't in control. And then I turned around because I felt like something coming towards me. And it was, I think it was two ladies, two or three, I think it was two or three ladies. But this is when they had that remote. And and when I saw the remote, I was like, oh my gosh, you're the dream guide. And I didn't think about it until Jace brought it to my attention. But he mentioned that, yeah, I could have been astral traveling, and that you can, like, if you're lucid in the dream and you maybe try to control or make commands, but you don't really, things aren't changing. Sometimes there's a possibility that you might be in a like you might be astral traveling, you might be in a
Yep.
different realm, right? Where it's like you're not in control, even though you're awake. In other circumstances, you'd be able to change some things, but in this case, like you're kind of experiencing as, a projection of consciousness as your astral being self. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of like how and I definitely feel separate from, like, I know that I'm not my physical body self. So I think that would be like more separate or more out of body experience as opposed to astral travel and meditation.
Oh, absolutely. Because my experience is when I astral travel in my dreams, it's so profound. And you're right. It's like you have control of yourself, but you don't have as much control of the environment. And it's not really because of the fact that you're not like lucid dreaming strong enough. It's that you might be on a different plane, you might be in a different time, you might be in a different place completely, and it changes the way that you exist within that space.
Yeah, so I want to just briefly talk about this really interesting article that I just found. And a Google search because you guys know that's what I do sometimes. If I don't have the books on hand, I'm just like, what can I Google right now? I just like to see what pops up and what's going on in the collective.
Thank goodness for Google search.
Right. And so I came across like, which this hasn't popped up before because I Google this topic all the time. And what came up was an article from Live Science, and the title is called Astral Projection Facts and Theories. And if you're curious about this article, it is in the description of this video. And if you're listening on Spotify, it's in the, show notes. And so astral projection in this article, I love that it was not necessarily debunking astral projection. And of course, they talk more about astral projection as like, most people I feel kind of blend astral travel as with astral projection, which I feel astral travel is probably just like the umbrella term. And then you have these different experiences as well, also share different ways that can be considered astral travel or different experiences that could be considered astral travel. And in this particular article, they talked about astral projection. And I love that they were just saying that it's something that they really can't scientifically prove, but not saying that it's not true. And what was really interesting, and this is just kind of reflecting back on our conversation we had months ago that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, is that there was a study where there were like about 210 people that they study that had vestibular. Okay, let me go to the actual part in the article so I don't butcher what this was.
Granted, it sounded like you were saying it right.
Vestibular disorder. So it says a study reported on by The Atlantic analyzed some 210 patients who suffered with vestibular disorders. The vestibular system within the inner ear is responsible for providing the body with its sense of balancing, and issues relating to this system can result in a sense of floating. And questioning the patients, it was discovered that 14% of these people reported out of body experiences compared to 5% who didn't have the vestibular issues. The reason why I'm bringing this up and why I found it really interesting is that, one, I thought this article was really funny because, or this point was really funny because they're actually proving, in a sense, that astral projection, astral travel is actually real in a sense, because I know one of the things I've experienced when it comes to astral travel in meditation and then in my experience with astral projection is like the sound of frequency. And even with the intention or the act of listening to certain frequencies when wanting to astral travel or to exit the body, I have, heard this buzzing or humming or sound within the inner ear. And if you watch the previous talk we had on astral projection and astral travel, our friend Lewis mentioned that that was part of like a technique to help someone to be able to astral project, is focusing on the sound within your inner ear. Like if you could, it's just like focusing on this part of your body. And so honestly, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I just wanted to share because I thought it was
It's
really
so interesting.
that it's like the science, it's like it's here, right?
Yeah.
As far as like the astral travel, and there's like certain things that you can, like certain experiences we have that we may like overlook, that is kind of guiding us towards like, or where we might experience these moments of astral travel, so to speak. I don't even know if I'm making sense. Is this like
No, you're absolutely making sense. It's these things are being investigated and there are correlations. And it may not be giving us all the answers, but the fact that they are doing the research and things are coming up based on these experiences, it's so profound and so interesting, and like, why haven't we dug in even deeper? A lot of, and I had kind of listened to the episode we had prior to this, or the conversation we had prior to this about astral travel and astral projection. And one of the things that I had brought up previously is like, is does astral travel have correlation with timelines? And does astral travel and the timelines connect us to prophetic dreams? Are we receiving messages, or are we just going into a different timeline ourselves to kind of figure out what's going on and what's going to happen? It's so profound and so interesting, and I'm very excited to see how far we go with our research with this type of thing.
Well, it's interesting too, because in this same article they mention that like the benefits of astral travel, like if we were able to astral travel, which we are, and
We
I want
are.
before I even get into this, obviously we've already had our own experiences. It's like when it comes to science, they really want that hard, like physical proof. And it's like the first point of truth is really to experience it for yourself. Like the first, that's proof,
Yes.
right? Like just because you,
Personal experience.
right, just because you can't like see in the data or like actually see with your physical eye someone's consciousness, leaving their body doesn't mean that it's not happening and it's not experienced. And so if you're someone questioning, try it out yourself, right? And that's one of the things they mention in the article, is that a lot of people, have had the same experience, have tried it out for themselves. They report the same like feelings or experiences as far as when they travel, what they see, or just like that, the overall feeling of it. But their hang up in this article is the actual tangible proof. And so but I like when they mention that there's so many benefits if we could have astral travel, which spoiler alert, we can. There's they mentioned about, basically they started to talk about remote viewing, where it's like, oh well, and they also mentioned if we can astral travel, we can go to these places and warn people, like say if there's a natural disaster or something's happening or there's a mass shooter or whatever, like we can have someone, astral travel and go to those places, which I think I don't know how I feel about that. I don't feel that like they're kind of missing the point,
I feel
maybe.
that that kind of goes on the, like, kind of tips over to like prophetic dreams, where like, thinking about there was a mudslide disaster in like the 1970s, and it was investigated that, like, because it happened to like a school, and it was investigated that a lot of the children who had passed in this experience with the mudslide hitting the school had dreams and actually draw or wrote about these experiences prior to it even happening. So I feel like that can kind of touch into that aspect of dreaming where it's more prophetic. But again, like I said with the timelines, like, is prophetic dreaming getting a message, or are we astral traveling to a different timeline for ourselves and getting the information?
Yeah. And is that time, like even the whole concept of time, like translate same through realms, right? Like if you come out of the body, because there's so much that we do in a dream, especially when you're very aware of the dream, when you're very conscious, that it's like you wake up and it hasn't really been that much time that's passed. I know, like because I always wake up, and now I've been sleeping with my phone for months. So, because that was a whole thing before, I was like, oh, I don't sleep with my phone in my room. Now I kind of have to because I need the alarm again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have bad habits. If I wake up, especially if I have like certain dreams, I'll like wake up and look at the astrology or like the time, definitely looking at the time just to get a sense of like how much time I got to sleep.
Yep.
So when I have, especially recently, dream after dream after dream, and I wake up and I'm like, wow, I've only been asleep for like an hour and a half, but so much has happened in the dream space. And it really does get you wondering, as far as when you're astral traveling, or when you're in the dream space, what is time? But also, I want to ask, are all dreams a form of astral travel? Like, what is your personal thought on that?
I don't have an answer. It feels like that. It feels like I'm traveling through different planes of existence, different time, like, different time slots. It feels like different worlds, different, just everything. Like, and I think that is one of the reasons why I love dreaming so much is because there aren't really answers to these. It's
Yeah.
purely your experience, your personal experience. I've talked about before a dream where I had woken up and I was literally like awake in my dream with a hangover in a
Right.
different country. And I was like it it felt like I was awake. And like
Yeah.
there's the aspect of just intense lucid dreaming, but also like what if there's more than that? What if it's not just lucid dreaming, but I'm actually like tapped into a different time zone, like time in life, and like experiencing this on a different plane of existence or a parallel like universe type of experience. I know I'm bringing a lot of like Doctor Who, Rick and Morty energy into this right now, but when you're an avid dreamer, these are the questions that come up because the experiences are so intense. You don't know.
Yeah, you really don't know. And like just what you were sharing as far as different shows, there was another article that I hadn't shared with you because I didn't want to overwhelm, but I'll definitely share with you after this. And I kind of scanned through it, but basically it was a woman who had watched, there was a show on Netflix called Behind Her Eyes or something like that. And
Okay.
that, and then she also referenced, of course, they referenced Doctor Strange, like the Marvel movie, but there was a show on Netflix in which a woman had learned how to astral project, and then she would travel around and do certain things. But so the author of this article was like, oh, I'm gonna like go ahead and I'm gonna test this out, I'm gonna astral travel. And it was so interesting, and I had to like skim through half of the article until she really started like getting into it, because it was pretty long, and
Yeah,
it was interesting though to see her start from a point of where it was like her intention was like very surface level, like no judgment. It was just like, oh, let's just, it was experimental, which is
of
like,
course.
that's a good space to be in. But she came into it where not necessarily thinking it wasn't real or couldn't be done, but she didn't really understand like the history, the like power and the healing and all of this, like, within the experience. And so it was really interesting because she went from one teacher that was actually the teacher that Netflix sought out to help them with the show. And then she ended up finding a local teacher who had been like astral projecting, astral travel, all that lucid dreaming for like a long time, and working with him. And it was really interesting because he was like, I love that he said, like her second teacher was saying that just because it's simple, like it seems simple, doesn't mean it's easy. Like she wasn't really understanding how profound and how deep and how challenging it is to actually do this kind of thing. Like, even, it is possible, but it's like you have to have the, be in the right mindset, especially if it's not something that comes easily to you. And it does take a bit of guidance. And also it's always best to check your intention, right? Your why, like, why do I want to astral travel? Why do I want to astral project? And, it was, I'm not going to spoil it. I'll actually put the link to it in the description of this video, because I had to like go to the end, read it to the end to see how her experience unfolded and what happened at the end. But it was like, as a spiritual person and as a science type person too, it was just so fun to see the evolution of her experience and like how it changed her in some capacity by like the end of, wherever she ended at that point in the journey, because she had to like write that article and you had deadlines and stuff like that. So it was really fascinating. But that's the thing, that with astral travel, astral projection, like it does come naturally to some people. And at other times, it's like, speaking of it coming naturally, it's it can come forth in so many ways. Like we might have this certain idea of what astral travel is supposed to look like, but as we discussed in the previous conversation, astral travel can literally be daydreaming, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Anytime outside of the present moment within your mind, that is a form of astral travel. Like it's a projection of your consciousness, whether it's in the past or the future.
Yeah. And you're not within that physical sense. Like when you got to think, when you daydream, you're not there. You're not there with your body. You're completely in a different place. And, I always forget that that's the truth of it. And I daydream
Yeah.
so much. And then I have to be like, okay, I need to be present right here, right now, because if I don't, I'm going to miss something important. But you get so enthralled by being awake and gone.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
When
And it's
I
easy for us. Like, I feel like it's
so
easy
easy,
for us to just, we're gone.
just check out, I'm out. And that was the thing. It wasn't honestly until I had my daughter where when I was pregnant, like halfway through the pregnancy, and pretty much now I'm starting to come slowly back into it. But I couldn't get out of the body. Even when it came to
Really?
doing stuff, like I was so anchored in my body, and I knew that it was a lesson for me personally to like be in the body and be present with that, because prior to that I was like, I've always been a daydreamer, and even with the Aquarian aspects too of myself,
Yeah.
like they're the visionary, they're like always looking to the future and innovating and doing all these things. And so, but I would say like maybe a year or two before I had my daughter, or maybe a little bit longer, is when I like quit my full-time job, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I spent probably like 3 or 4 months doing the astral meditations. Like that was my job. I would like get up in the morning, and I would journal and listen to music, and I'm gone. And for at least 45 minutes, I'm out. And it was so easy to drop in and just like escape in that way. And yeah, like once I had my daughter, especially now after her actually birthing her, you can't, like as a mom, it's really hard to escape that way, because in the back of your mind it's always like, well, what if she's crying, or you hear the phantom cries, and
Yep.
so it's like you can't really escape. You're like, oh no. So I'm getting
I'm very interested in the fact that once you got pregnant and you were along in your pregnancy, you couldn't really leave that physical sense. Do you feel like like you were stationary because of like the protection of it?
yeah, I think it was like, yeah, and then just having like a physical other being in your body, it was probably, you know, not to be too spiritual, but the
No,
very,
please.
because I did the astral travels like pretty much halfway through my pregnancy. And there was a point where before I knew she was a girl, I I don't know if I intentionally like called in the baby spirit or it just happened, but there was a journey in which I connected with her spirit, and she told me why she chose us as parents, and her role and everything. And then like later I found out I was a girl, and all the things. And it made, like, now that she's been birthed and I know her personality, and even knowing her astrology, I was like, whoa, that makes so much sense. But I felt like from my memory, I think that was the last time I actually was able to astral travel. And it was like, I think her spirit was with that, or her soul was with that, the growing like fetus, I guess you could say. And
Yep.
so it was hard for me to disassociate from that at that time. I mean, that's my clearest understanding of that.
It makes
So
so much sense though, because you've become a protector of this magnificent force that's growing within inside you. So why would you want to leave?
right, yeah, yeah, it's like I have to be here. So
I love that. And the fact that you like kind of had that sneak peek and it all correlates
yeah,
like into her,
yeah, it was crazy.
toddlerhood and understanding her. I just find that so beautiful. Just so mysterious and beautiful, all wrapped in one little package.
Yeah, yeah, so that was like the last true astral travel that I've had in meditation. I haven't really been able, like I've had some like deep meditations like that, but it hasn't been like as like I've still been like very tethered to my body in a in a strong way. So it hasn't
Yeah.
been like a full
Well, when you're a
release.
mother, you have to be. Like when you astral travel, especially when it's meditation, you really are separating yourself from your physical form. And when you have a child, you can't be gone. You have to be anchored in case anything happens when they need you in any way. Like it's, and even if you don't like know that consciously, your subconscious is like
Oh
holding.
yeah. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
think you're gonna explore that more since we are having this conversation? Are you gonna go deeper into astral travel and projection, or do you think it's still gonna be a little
Really
while?
want to, but I just like it's now I do since she's in preschool, I have like a 3 hour window, which I could. So I've definitely been thinking about that. Like
I
as
mean,
a
even the like the one I had in the bathtub with the guided meditation where I was within myself and within the earth at the same time. It was only like a 30-minute thing. Like it felt like years, but it was only 30 minutes. So maybe
that's
that might be something to starting off with like smaller bits of time.
yeah, and that's like that's all I need. And it's really interesting just to witness my own shift between, in the topic of this conversation, the astral travel and meditation and then through dreams and just like I would do everything that I'm doing in dreams now, I was doing in like through those meditations. Like I would, as far as like the dream incubation, I was doing that as a form of like meditation and astral travel. Like the lucid experiences, that those things would happen in meditation or just like, yeah, it was really interesting. Like, and now I've seen the power of dreams and how my even my perspective has transitioned to the dream space as like compensating for like, okay, like you're not going to be able to be in full control, like because as I mentioned with astral travel meditation, I feel like there's a little bit more control versus like when you're the dream, like,
Mm-hmm.
either you're lucid and you have control, so to speak, but then when you get to a certain level, like maybe you don't and you're there just as a part of what's happening, and so it definitely speaks to my own soul's evolution as far as like what I need in my spiritual journey and letting go of the control a little bit more and to experience it and then from a different space, that being
Yeah,
with the yeah.
I think I need to like within my dream space. It's easy for me, or it seems like it's easy for me to astral travel, but to to make the time to get back into the meditation aspect of it, I definitely need to make more time. I mean, I think one of my biggest downfalls was I was using the meditations off of this app called Moonly, Moonly, and it was like the person speaking was so, because a lot of the times if the person's voice isn't particular to what I need, I can't get into the energy of the meditation. But this app had the most beautiful meditations and the voices were so soothing, and I feel like ever since I got rid of that, because it's a paid app, I've not been focusing on the meditations.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. I know that there, like some people say that you can try using your own script, like you recording yourself saying certain things. Like if you have a script, which you can find, I'm sure, anywhere online, and you can record yourself speaking. But I don't know, that could be a distraction because you're like, oh, why do I sound weird? This sounds like funny.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted to do that, like for my own regressions, to record myself.
I don't know if I could take myself seriously.
Right. I know I haven't because it's
Like,
like you used to your voice in one dynamic in one way, like showing up here doing a podcast and on videos, but
yeah,
then to listen to yourself guiding you through a meditative journey, it's like Come on, really?
Well, I don't have to sit here, like, I don't have to re-listen to myself talk about what we're talking about now. But if I want to intentionally make a meditative track, I have to listen to myself. And I feel like I'm going to lay down in that bath or on that bed or on the floor with my eyes closed in that perfect space. And then as soon as my voice comes on, I'm kind of just like, yeah, no.
So this was another interesting thing from this point from this article that I mentioned, the Live Science article, is that they said people who are more susceptible, I think I'm saying that right, susceptible to
Susceptible, yeah.
um, hypnotism, to being hypnotized, are they have an easier time with astral travel and astral projection, or being at least being able to experience that. And I can kind of see
I
that.
can see it. Have you been hypnotized before? I have not.
I haven't, like, as far as like the traditional way of hypnotizing, no, but what brought this to mind is that literally last night I did a meditation, and it was from one of my like former teachers, and she does like tons of these meditations, and she is so like, she's a regressionist. She drops you in, and she's
Really?
at it that I it's like a fight to stay awake, like to
I've
not,
never done that
I want to
before.
like experience it, in a meditative state, but conscious. And what's crazy is that, and I listened to, this is the second time I listened to it, but what's crazy is that I'm listening to it. She's guiding you through, she's dropping you in, you feel super relaxed, and then you're out, and then you come back right at the end of it, like right as she like pulls you out. Like I come back, because it's like if I fall asleep, then I would just be like, I would sleep for
You would just be asleep.
longer than the
Yeah.
tape would be going, the video would be going. But in this instance, I always wake up as soon as like it's like right towards the end. And I know, and I've listened to not this one specifically, but other recordings and other meditations that she's done. I listen to it, like, say, while washing the dishes during the day, because I'm like, I want to hear like what the journey is. And sure enough, I'll get to the point where she's like, and then 5, you're da 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 da, 4, and then that's when I come out of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. And
It's so
sometimes,
funny because you really just get swept away.
yeah, and
And
sometimes
do you
I have,
feel like it's a sleep, or do you feel like you're in like that hypnagogic state in between awake and asleep where you're just floating in between that waking realm and the dream realm?
sometimes, most of the time, it's what you just said, the
Mhm.
hypnagogic state. But last night, and I want to say the time before that, I was just out. Like I wasn't asleep though, because I came out of it right at the right time, but
Mhm.
I didn't remember. Sometimes I'll recall the journey like bits and pieces, and some things will come to me. Like I remember there was one that I was in an ocean, and I was like, I don't know if I was a dolphin, but I was like with dolphins, and it was like this really like euphoric feeling. And then I ended up, because it was like this ancient Egyptian travel or something, and then I woke up like in like one of the pyramids and stuff. And then when I
Oh,
that was
wow.
I listened to, like, just doing things, and there was nothing in there about water, like being in the ocean. I mean, there was the Egyptian temple and all of that. So I was like, whoa, that was really cool. That was just like a little journey I had in whatever that the guide was.
Well, and
Um,
dolphins are incredibly intuitive. So, like, it
yeah,
makes you question, like, well, were the dolphins in a hypnagogic or a sleep state where you both were kind of meeting in the same space?
yeah. I love that stuff. So I can see how, if you are able to like just leave the body and escape, it probably is easier for you to be maybe hypnotized too, where it's just like, yeah.
Well, it's letting go and allowing yourself to experience it. It's letting the control go. And I think the people who have a harder time releasing control are the people who aren't able to get deep within this as easily. And it's a practice, it takes time, like I border on the line of that where like I'm able to let go of control, but I'm not able to disperse myself completely.
Yeah. 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 I don't know if Scorpio risings over here. It's like hard to trust folks. So I don't know if it can't just be anyone, that I would let hypnotize me. And I think that's why I haven't done it as an experiment,
Mhm.
just in a traditional way. And so yeah, that would be something interesting. But speaking of control, I'm just like, if I don't know you, if I don't have a connection and history with you, no, I'm good. I
No,
don't.
I completely get that. We're gonna have to like go somewhere together and like experience it together because I feel like at that point, the influence of each other being in that space will help us lose control a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Jace is saying that you can try self hypnosis. And I'll try that before I let someone else do it, but I might be distracted because it's just so I want to wrap this conversation up. I don't actually want to wrap it up, but we probably should. Talk about this is just making me think about the benefits of astral travel. Just talking about the conversation of the experience of being hypnotized, and a lot of people get hypnotized to like rid themselves of old habits, like bad habits, or just any kind of trauma.
The
And
biggest one being like, I think the most popular one is like to hypnotize yourself from smoking.
yeah,
Like I feel like that's what's and like you'll see
that's
ads
like
for. Are
yeah.
you smoking? Do you want to quit? Come get hypnotized.
Mhm. And I'm sure it probably works. I mean, it might not work for everyone, of course, but
Well,
that's
it's
been a,
letting go of that control. If you don't have the ability to let them control you, you're not going to let something like that guide you.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. And it's like that reprogramming of your consciousness in a sense. So this is one thing
Absolutely.
that really inspires me to, and I think a lot of what I've been reading, again, because if you search astral travel, you're going to get a lot on astral projection.
Yes.
And the main benefit that people talk about as far as astral projection, or when you are able to do that, is healing yourself, or, having the intention to heal, or to, come across some sort of whatever might be supportive for you or beneficial for you. And like, just for lack of a better word, like that would, I guess, better your life. I don't guys, it's late.
No, no,
Stuff
no.
my words, but like basically, like if you want this great idea, if you're stumbling over like for creative, what's the word, creative inspiration, stuff like that. So with that said, that's what inspires me to astral travel in a sense, is like, and that's my lucid dream experience too. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like
Is to
I just want
gain more knowledge of different aspects of existence in ways you couldn't in your waking or your physical self. Like you are going deeper into yourself in ways that you couldn't in your consciousness.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so I want, and that's one of the things I do know that my intention for the dream work, the intentional dream work, was to really help myself get through the blocks that I just couldn't, I didn't even like, it's like I know they're there, but they were not very clear. Like any programming that is just keeping me in resistance,
The
anything,
resistance is
right?
strong.
The resistance is so strong.
I am so annoyed with the resistance of myself. Like, I'm like, I just want to do this one
It's like just
thing and I can't do it because I'm
well,
holding myself back and there's no one else to blame but myself. And yet here I am.
yeah, and shout out to Jen, one of our frequent listeners here. Jen mentioned that, her dream space doesn't really give the direct answer. And I feel like a lot of us experience this.
Mm-hmm.
And, it shows up in imagery and symbology. And it's just like, that's one of the things with my conscious. I'm like, can you just give me like just one little, like very clear, like do this,
Yeah.
do this thing, right? You don't even have to tell me how it's going to help, but just like with words or something. So, cause
Please
I'm
give
all
me
like,
direction.
I'm distracted by everything else going on in the dream. Just like, on a sign. So maybe on a sign tonight, I'm gonna, incubate that.
Yes. And you know
But
what's funny is like, as somebody who works with other people with dreams, and I'm sure you get this as well, when you listen to their dreams, they're like, it's immediate. You know exactly what is
yeah, it's
going
so
on.
clear.
But with yourself, it takes work and it takes communication and it takes unraveling the like secrets that are embedded in the just like deep depths of the experiences you have.
Yeah. It's so, and I feel that way too as a reader. Like when I do tarot, astrology not so much because there's just so many different ways you can get to one, perspective or one like interpretation.
Yeah.
But tarot, like I'll get someone's cards, they're reading, and it's so clear. Like I'm
It's
like,
so clear.
but when it's myself, I'm like, well, I don't really know. I'm gonna have to pull some more cards on this. Like, what does this actually mean?
I
Or I
feel
get
like
out
there's
my
an
pendulum and
aspect of denial that comes with reading your own cards. And I don't mean this in an insulting way for anybody, but like when I do my tarot with my boss at work, I read her cards, she reads mine. And I kid you not, we have a full conversation prior to the cards. And then when we pull the cards, we both get exactly what we just talked about
yeah,
in the previous conversation. And it's to the point. And we're looking at each other like, you know what this means. You know exactly what this means. And I know exactly what this means. But when you're by yourself, there's almost an aspect of deniability. Well, there's nobody else here to confirm this is like what it means. So I'm going to
right.
run
Yeah.
in circles around what was given.
And the funny thing is, I don't know if you do this. I mean, I feel like a lot of us do this. It's like when it's a good message too, I feel like that's harder for me to receive. Like, believe it or not, it's like,
Yeah.
wait, can this really be true? Like the
Yeah.
spread that I had, yeah, the reading that I had yesterday for myself, like I was in a really like I wasn't in a funky mood, but I just was feeling like a strong lack of motivation. And the cards that I got were just I was like, wait, no, is this like, I literally got my pendulum. I'm like, is this the right reading for me? I was like, yes or no, because I just like, wow. And it's when it's the really good ones, I'm just like, all right, well, when? Because like,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I
But yeah,
completely get that. It's so different. It really is so different when you do it with yourself versus when you do it with another person. And
yeah,
I like the joint reading. So I like when they read for you and you read for them because there is that sense of like accountability in a way because they're there to verify that this is real.
yeah. Yeah. And this is like just what we're sharing here translates to dream sharing as well, because
Absolutely.
it's like you have your own. I feel like dreams, it's even more personal and intimate because like no one can really feel what you felt.
Nope.
So you're gonna have your initial interpretation is so very true. And when you share it with someone that you trust, especially when there's an ongoing sharing of dreams, it's just their insight is just like no other. Even if it's,
Invaluable.
oh, I think, or I got this from that. It could be like a sentence, and you're just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this happened recently with you and I, but I don't even remember what it was, but I was just like, oh, I didn't even like look at it from that perspective. And it was just like something small that you said, like a sentence worth of something. And so, yeah, it's just having someone to share on these topics with and to regularly share your dreams with is just it's really healing, and it really gives you so many layers to kind of approach whatever's coming up for you at the time. So I there's and with astral travel, it's an experience, and yes, it's a little bit different than dreams, but it's still in that same arena of
Realm.
an experience
Yeah.
and the realm of dreams and consciousness. And we're all uncovering these really hidden aspects of ourselves and, what the nature of reality is in general. And so it's really nice to have a space to share and the sharing is what you really, grow and heal from.
I agree 100%. I think doing dream work on your own is healing, but once you start to expand into the community and you get to see and hear other people's perspectives, and it just brings you to different aspects that you never would have thought about on your own, it imbues a different type of healing that you would not get on your own.
Yeah. So another inspiration, the main inspiration for this chat is that next week we are going to do another Dreams in Media episode where it's going to be the first one on the podcast.
Yep.
We're going to do Dreams in Media and we're going to talk about Insidious.
Oh, I'm so pumped.
And
I'm
I'm
so
really
excited.
excited. It's the season. And yeah, so we'll be talking about that next week in reference to a bit of what we shared here. So we'll be expanding on astral travel
Yep.
as well as just the experience in the film Insidious. So we would love to hear your questions, your experiences, your thoughts in reference to the film and
Yeah,
to
absolutely. Absolutely. To astral travel, astral projection, and to the film, like I know that the film really dives into the life or death aspect, which we'll get deeper into it. But if you're familiar and you have questions or you have topics based on that film that you want us to go into, feel free to email us or message us and let us know, because your input is important.
yes. So you can email us at theinnerversepodcast@gmail.com. And you can also submit a dream there if you would like us to share here anonymously and interpret it live. That would be so much fun for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so please like this video if you liked our content, our conversation today. We would love, again, to hear your experiences and your questions and thoughts. You can share them in the comments of the replay. If you're listening on Spotify, you can also comment on Spotify now and give us a follow on Spotify as well. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And anything else you want to share, Alexis? I didn't really ask you.
I feel like our conversation ended on a really nice note, and I feel like I'm good to allow the this to conclude.
Yeah. Thank you, Jace, for being here and
Yes,
finding
thank you.
us in this new space. And until the next time, sweet dreams, everyone.
Sweet dreams, guys. Enjoy.
Bye.